Good morning and welcome to Live with Lewis for November 4th, 2004. We're coming to you today from the banks of the Missouri River near Washburn, North Dakota. The Discovery Expedition has completed its 2004 mission, and we have brought the boats as far as the Fort Mandan reconstruction above Washburn, North Dakota. And today is the day that we will be taking the boats out of the water for the final time in preparation for a return to St. Louis and St. Charles. And it's a bittersweet moment for us this morning as we actually say goodbye to each other. The men are saying goodbye this morning. The boats are about to be taken out of the water in just the next couple of hours. And it's been quite an adventure, quite a year on the river for us, and we're happy that you've joined us this morning. Again, thank you for joining us for this final broadcast of Live with Lewis from the trail this year. We'll be continuing our broadcasts throughout the winter, and of course we'll commence again in the spring when we continue on from this point on toward the Pacific Ocean next year. As always, we'll get a little bit of our business out of the way, and we encourage all of you who are watching today's broadcast to send us your email questions and comments at lewisandclark@clayton.k12.mo.us. That's LEWISANDCLARK at CLAYTON.k12.mo.us. Again, thanks for joining us for this broadcast. It's a special broadcast this morning, as we have completed our journey. And as you can see in the background, the boats are being prepared for travel, as we will put them on trailers today, and the South Dakota National Guard will begin moving us back to St. Louis and ultimately to our boathouse in St. Charles, Missouri. As always, 200 years ago, we reflect on what happened to the original Corps of Discovery when they made their journey to this point in the trip 200 years ago. And like the original expedition, they spent several days in this area determining what area and what spot they would choose and use as a winter quarters, and we have done the same. This was an important time for the original expedition. They had spent a great deal of time among the Arikara, the Mandan, Hidatsa, and we likewise have spent a goodly portion of time over the last week or two moving from below Bismarck to this area here, which will serve as the final stopping point for the expedition this year. I'd like to first of all today take this opportunity to thank all of the men who have served the Discovery Expedition and its mission this year. There are far too many to name. Last week from our broadcast out at Fort Lincoln at Bismarck, Mandan, North Dakota, you probably had an opportunity to meet some of the men as they introduced themselves. And like the original expedition, it would not have been possible had it not been for the efforts of many, many individuals, both the members of the Corps as well as the natives that they met along the way. And our natives are not only in the indigenous people, tribal members, but the people who live in this area today. Lewis and Clark made a determination when they reached this area that they would go no further. They explored as far up as the Knife River, and we did the same, and we're going to show you some footage of that a little bit later. And it was determined to establish the winter quarters just above where we're sitting right now. There was plenty of wood to build the fort, and they named the fort after their neighbors, as Lewis remarked, Fort Mandan, in honor of our neighbors, he said. And that was, of course, the Mandan people who inhabited this area 200 years ago. Like the original expedition, our expedition spent a good deal of time trying to negotiate this last leg of the river, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And at this time, we'll talk a little bit about what's happened to us over the last week or so since we saw you. We'll go to some B-roll in just a minute, but to let you know, when we came up from Bismarck, North Dakota, it was very questionable whether or not we would be able to make this last leg. The water was extremely low. Curiously enough, today you'll see a good deal of water in the river behind us. The Corps of Engineers is now letting water out of the dam above us, and there's much more water in the river behind us right now than there was just a day or two ago. And it was very, very difficult as we made our way up this far. The low water presented real problems, but the crew proved to be very, very committed to this exercise, and the boats themselves also proved worthy. Glenn Bishop's dream to bring the Keelboat this far by water was successful, and the last few days have been really quite exciting as we have literally fought through the river to make it this far. we're going to take a look now at some of the B-roll from this past week. And again, I would encourage you, if you have questions or comments, to send those to us. Here you see us at Bismarck with Governor Hoeven, who is the governor of North Dakota. And we presented him with a few tokens of our appreciation for his support. And he likewise presented us with some tokens of thanks. Here you see us just below the area we're in now, and here we are getting the boats at Steckel Landing, getting them off of the sand there so that we can continue up the last leg or so to this area. The water is extremely low, and of course the United States Army National Guard, this is the North Dakota National Guard Boat Bridge Company that's helping move men out to the boats. We offloaded men and to lighten the load as we got off the sand beaches there, and the National Guard is ferrying the crew out now to make the ascent of the river. Just a few days ago, there's Ed Falvo, one of our members from back in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania, who's joined us for this last leg. He's from the area that the boat started last year, and here we are getting ready to move the boats on up the river down by Cross Ranch. Curiously enough, Cross Ranch, a little hometown connection for those of us from Alton, was once owned by a man from Alton, Ben Levis from Alton, Illinois. And here we are at Cross Ranch, as always, working with young people to educate those folks and to tell the story of Lewis and Clark. And here's a shot from the camp. This was our next to last ground camp before we reached Fort Mandan at Cross Ranch. And here you see all three of the boats making it through what was the most difficult area. Here we ran the boat through as little as 2 feet of water, and the keel plowed through the river, and it was an exciting time. And here we are at the Washburn Bridge. Jim Sturm shooting footage of the boats as you see them making their way under the Washburn Bridge, essentially crossing the finish line, as it were. And there you see the red pirogue and its crew making their way under the bridge. It's been a very, very difficult year for us. The challenges of the Missouri River have been manifold and multiple problems with regard to all sorts of conditions. We have encountered essentially 5 different rivers as we have made our way up. And here you see us on the Keelboat there, bringing the Keelboat in. And it's been quite cold. We've been very fortunate with the weather. Overall, we have had some snow, a little bit of snow earlier, about 2 weeks ago. And the weather's been pretty cold, but the sun has been out most of the time, so we've been very fortunate with regard to the weather. The men have just been absolutely outstanding, and I'm going to continue to thank folks as we watch this footage and we describe what's happening here. I want to thank all the people at Apple Computer who've made our streaming video broadcast possible, ADEC, Morenet, just so many different people, Bob Dixon and his crew at Ohio State University, of course, the School District of Clayton, which has been so supportive in making these broadcasts possible. And here you see the 3 boats actually arriving at Washburn, North Dakota, where we're located right now. We did spend a day here before we moved on up to Fort Mandan and explored as far up as the Knife River. And you see the boats being docked here. The pirogues, after we docked at Washburn, as they did historically 200 years ago, the pirogues continued to explore the Missouri River up toward the Knife River to recon that area. And as you can see there, Gary Ulrich actually in the water, pushing the boat and the men poling the boat through what was less than a foot of water in some times. There you see the boat moving very, very difficultly through the very low water as it's moving across the sandbars, and the men struggling to move the boat off of the sandbars, which they were successful in. And there you can see how low it is as Gary stands in the water. Some very powerful images have been captured by our project, and here you see us at the Knife River. The Keelboat and the pirogues were unable to actually make it into the Knife River, so some men moved by land to look at this very beautiful place and get a little glimpse of what we're going to see next year as we move from this point on up. Jim Rasher there. We've got a little audio here. Continue on at this point and look for better accommodations above, or do you think that we should establish a winter quarters in this proximity?
No, I think establishing winter quarters here would be a good idea, with friendly Mandans to trade with, good timber for a fort about 2 miles above us. I think this is the spot.
And below the Knife River Village, then?
Far below. Far below the Knife River Village.
Excellent. One more day and the mission is complete. And as happened historically, we sent a group of men by land. Myself and 6 other men made our way up to the site of Fort Mandan on ground on November 2nd, the historic date of the establishment of Fort Mandan. As the journals say, we moved there early in the morning and established our camp and set about the work of building the fort. And here we are right at the site of Fort Mandan. And the day that we moved up on November 2nd, later that day, as we moved up, 2 eagles joined us and led us up. It was as if the eagles were guiding us to Fort Mandan. And here you see the entire unit in full blues, a complement of 42 men and a dog making their way up the river, the last stretch to Fort Mandan. And we'll just take a look at this footage now. And there you see the 3 boats and their final approach to Fort Mandan. It was quite a beautiful day. General Haugen, the Adjutant General for North Dakota, in this particular picture you can't see him, but he's actually circling around us in a Black Hawk helicopter, and we were able to salute him and thank him for all the support that he has brought to bear with the National Guard. And here are the boats arriving finally at their last stop, the last destination for the 2004 exercise, as the boats row into Fort Mandan. 1,370 miles approximately we've come this year via the river system of North America, and it has been quite an adventure for us. And as you can see here, our final entrance into Fort Mandan, an entire complement of United States Army and there the Corps of Discovery entering Fort Mandan. 200 years to the date of our predecessors making their entrance.
Pile up! Present job! Pile up! Let iron shake their iron rod, and slavery clang her galling chain. We fear them not. I'd like to give this to you to take back to the headquarters for the...
There you see General Haugen of the North Dakota Guard.
You aren't aware, the National Guard is now a combined force of Army and Air, and proud to have an Air Guardsman as our Adjutant General.
And immediately following that ceremony, we moved back to the Keelboat, where Noel Stasiak, a member of the expedition from the St. Louis area, re-enlisted for another 4 years as a United States Navy equipment operator. He's a 23-year veteran of the United States Navy and Naval Reserves, and we were proud to have that as a culminating event for our ceremony on the 2nd of November, as we celebrated the story of Lewis and Clark and commemorated the expedition that they took 200 years ago, and it was a fitting end to have one of our members re-enlist in the service of the United States Armed Forces. So it has been quite an exciting trip for us. There have just been so many memories. We've been so happy to be able to share so many things with you, our viewing audience, and the wider world that's been able to take this trip with us via the internet capabilities that we have. And at this time, what we'd like to do is sort of have a retrospective look at what's happened to the Discovery Expedition over the last 6 months. May 14th, leaving Camp Du Bois, making our way through the rain to the boats. And here we are leaving Wood River Creek, as our predecessors had done 200 years before us, on the morning of May 14th. And here you see the 3 boats entering the mouth of the Missouri River at approximately 1600 hours, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the same date and same time of day as the original Corps of Discovery made their way into the Missouri River. And as our expedition continued through the Missouri River Valley, through the state of Missouri, so many adventures, so many experiences. St. Charles, Missouri, 75,000 people greeted us there. Another 75,000 or so said goodbye to us on the 21st of May when we made our way up the river. Such beautiful memories of places like New Haven and all the many small communities along the way. Of course, the Education Initiative, Tim Gore, Jim Sturm, and myself continuing to bring this story to educators and students across the country. As we passed Jefferson City, it was quite a milestone. We received so much support from the governor and the state of Missouri. This is Governor Holden's wife, Lori Hauser Holden. Of course, the state of Missouri provided us with much support, including the Department of Conservation's support, which was so crucial to our exercise. And as we moved through the western part of Missouri, we began to have encounters with Native Americans and started to work with our Native American friends. And we hope that all of you have enjoyed the stories we've been able to bring to you, not only of Lewis and Clark, but of the history of the communities that line the Missouri River here at historic Fort Osage, founded by William Clark after the expedition, an important trading post on the Missouri River. One of the things that's been so important to our expedition is the interest that we have generated in communities along the way about their own history, reawakening a spirit of wonder and excitement in people all along the way about the history of their communities. Kansas City, Missouri, of course, a signature event. We spent quite a long time in this area between Kansas City and on up toward Atchison, Kansas and St. Joe. Been pleased and honored to have so many fine guests like Steve Alley from the Frontier Army Museum. And of course, each day, the most prominent character in this story, the river. And here we are arriving at Atchison, Kansas for the 4th of July celebration there, marking the 200th anniversary of Lewis and Clark's arrival in that spot. Again, the governors and the governments of each of the states that we've moved through have been so helpful. We've been able to have such terrific memories of things such as the 4th of July celebration and fireworks at Atchison, Kansas, a spectacular night. And of course, St. Joseph, Missouri, which was the terminus of our very first trip in 1996 when Glenn Bishop led us on our first outing of 1,000 miles. St. Joe, Missouri was the end of our trip. And beyond St. Joe, all that we would experience then would be new to us. And here we are at the Sac and Fox Cultural Museum. Here's one of the men taking advantage of an opportunity to do some live firing. We had so many wonderful experiences on this trip. Jim Gassner, one of our crew members, and Cooper working there. Finally saying goodbye to Missouri as we would move on out of our home state. Here you see the men reenacting some of the activities of the original expedition, collecting flint from the rock walls, visiting the sites at Indian Cave State Park, and here at Brownville, the Meriwether Lewis, a Corps of Engineers dredge boat that fundamentally changed the Missouri River. A rare shot inside the Keelboat, giving you some idea of what life for us has been for 6 months. Of course, one of the highlights here at Bellevue, Nebraska, the tile wall made by school children from all the counties along the Missouri River. And of course, again, the river itself, the predominant feature in our story. Omaha, Nebraska, the home of the National Park Service Trail, Lewis and Clark Trail offices. National Park Service, of course, instrumental in making the expedition possible, their support through their challenge cost share grants, and it was an exciting day for us to be able to reward the folks of Omaha by bringing all 3 boats in that day under sail power alone. Some 17 miles we were able to sail this day under sail power alone. National Park Service has recently built a new office building right along the banks of the Missouri, and it was a tremendous honor for us to be able to sail by there flying their flag, the flag of the Department of the Interior. And of course, another signature event, the First Council event at Fort Atkinson, the Calhoun area, Fort Calhoun, above Omaha, where we had the opportunity to actually begin our contemporary dialogue with Native Americans, with the Otoe, Missouri, the Omaha. And what a learning experience it has been for us to gain a greater understanding of Native American issues and the Native American perspective on this story and the story of American Western expansion as a whole. And we hope that images such of this have been helpful and meaningful for those of you who work with students in your classrooms. Ottawa, Iowa. We passed near Ottawa, Iowa on the river and visited with Butch Bouvier, who is another builder of replica keelboats, and had the opportunity to broadcast from his site there at the lake near Blue Lake near Ottawa. And of course the Sergeant Floyd Memorial and commemoration of the death of Sergeant Floyd. And finally, the Dakotas. In South Dakota, we began the process of portaging the boats around the dams. And here you see the Keelboat being pulled out by the National Guard, South Dakota National Guard, which has been so instrumental in making our trip a success. Folks like Diane Norton, who's been involved in the Bicentennial planning for many, many years, joined us there in Yankton. And here at Elk Point, South Dakota, and you can see young Bison, Siemens Bicentennial, our new dog we call Bison, has just joined us. And so many things began to happen in this area with our ascent of Spirit Mound. And here you see us at the top of Spirit Mound after making the trek from Vermilion River to this very spiritual place. And finally, we enter the land of the Sioux. And we are here with members of the Yankton Sioux at Greenwood and Marty, where they start to share their cultural experiences with us. And our time with the Sioux has been so very important, as we have learned about this great culture that was already here, portaging the boats at Yankton, cordelling the boats at Yankton. And this was still warm weather, and we took advantage of this opportunity to train the men on how to move the boats manually in a different way than they had before. And it would ultimately prove very valuable, because while this cordelling here is part of an exercise, it would not be long before cordelling was essential to moving the boats. And here you see how the terrain has changed fundamentally as we start to move across the reservoir lakes. Elsie slides off, an elder of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. We were fortunate enough to have an opportunity to speak with her, and Raymond uses the knife, the vice chair of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, as they shared stories of their culture. And here you can see clearly by the images on the screen how vastly different the river has become in this area. Chamberlain, South Dakota, the Octa Lakota Museum and Cultural Center. Dixie Thompson, the wife of Avery Thompson, the most likely descendant of Meriwether Lewis who lives today. The Triple U Buffalo Ranch and Dave Hansen. He's been a longtime friend. We actually hunted a buffalo here and were able to take a buffalo. And Whetstone Bay, this is the area where the first prairie dog was taken. And the folks in this Gregory County area came out in force. And Russell Means, as well as other members of the group Stop Lewis and Clark, a group that has been protesting our trip. And we have been deeply touched by the concerns that these folks have raised about the plight of Native Americans, both historically as well as in a contemporary way. We've had many opportunities to meet with these folks, and we honor their and respect their opinions, and we champion their right to speak to those issues. And again, we continue to meet with tribal chairmen. This is Chairman Big Eagle from Crow Creek Reservation. At Lower Brule, South Dakota, a place that had played an important part in our story in the year 2001. We have many friends there, and Mike Gendreau, the chairman of the Lower Brule tribe. And here you see the boats entering Fort Pierre, South Dakota, just across the river from Pierre, South Dakota, for the signature event there. And here we reenact the meeting with the Teton Sioux, perhaps the most important chapter in the story of Lewis and Clark as it pertains to the Sioux Empire. Many of our interviews have been conducted with people who are responsible for cultural preservation and the economic preservation of communities along the way. And here you see the fundamental change in the culture as we enter the land of the Earth Lodge dwellers with the Arikara and the Mandan Hidatsa. And here we are inside one of the many Earth Lodge reconstructions that we have had the opportunity of seeing along the way. The Dakota Sunset Museum, where the Medicine Rock is now housed, and there you see the Medicine Rock. And this is a rock that used to be considered an oracle to the native people who lived near it. Mobridge, South Dakota. The boats entering Indian Creek. And then making our way up past Sutton Bay and Swan Creek. Fort Manuel above Mobridge, a fort named after Manuel Liza, an important fur trader out of St. Louis, and of course one of the many Sitting Bull monuments. And finally, North Dakota. And at North Dakota, the South Dakota National Guard essentially passed us off to the North Dakota National Guard, who would continue to support our mission as we moved on up the river. Fort Yates, North Dakota, the final resting place of Sitting Bull. We had the great opportunity to meet with Chairman Charles Murphy of the Standing Rock Sioux Nation, the most northern of the Sioux tribes along the river here. And as we came into the area where we would be coming to the next signature event, Tracy Potter there, who organized that event, and of course the Keelboat with snow. It has been quite a trip. There have been so many experiences, so many opportunities for enlightenment that we have had, so many experiences the men have had with one another, life-changing experiences, as we have followed the route of our predecessors and really not simply reenacted their expedition, but have had the opportunity to experience an expedition of our own, a very real one. The American river system is an incredibly beautiful corridor through this continent. And we have said that before, and it has been our mission to bring as many images as possible of that cultural corridor to you via the internet. I'm almost at a loss for words today as far as what more to share with you. For the educators and students who've been following us via the internet, I hope that what we have done has been meaningful. I hope that it has augmented your classroom teaching. I hope that it has been a meaningful experience for you students who've had the opportunity to witness so many things that we have been able to bring you via our trip and our internet capabilities. I hope that the questions that you have or the comments that you have, that you will pass them along to us. We will continue our project throughout the year, but this, as I said, is our last day on the river for 2004. The men are exhausted, and it is time to establish our winter quarters, wherever they may be. We will have some presence here in the Washburn, Bismarck area over the winter and continue to do work here. We'll be doing logistics planning for our trip next year that will lead us to the ocean. But we will conduct further broadcasts throughout the winter. Our next broadcast will be on November 14th, and it will be a curriculum-based broadcast, as well as a little bit of an update of the final hours of our expedition this year. For those of you who are in the St. Louis area, I would tell you that we will be arriving in downtown St. Louis under the arch near Keener Plaza on November 7th, this coming Sunday. We'll be there at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon on 7th Street between between Market and Chestnut. And we hope that anyone who's in the St. Louis area who cares to come down and join us in our return and see the men and see the boats that have made this historic voyage, we invite you to do so. Do we have any email questions at this time? We have no email questions at this time. One of the things that we thought we would do today, and as part of our final hour here, is to lower the flag for the last time on the Keelboat. It's been part of our daily life. Each day that we have made this voyage, we have raised the flag in the morning, and we have lowered it at the end of the duty day. And as we speak here now today, this marks the end of our duty day on the Missouri River for 2004. And in just a moment, we'll see the men preparing to lower the flags, and we invite you to, in your own way, honor these flags and recognize what this voyage has meant for our country. Take care! Attention! Present! Arms! Let tyrants shake their iron rod, and slavery clank her galling chains. We fear them not. We trust in God. New England's God forever reigns. Order! Arms! God bless the United States of America. We proceed on.